book lovers, it is G-Swizz here, and I'm here today to talk about my most read authors of 2022. Considering I read 300 books in 2022, I figured this might be a great idea because there were some authors that I did return to here or there last year. There are some authors I experienced for the first time or just decided I wanted to dive into more of their works. And as my 2022 content comes to a close, I kind of want to review the authors I read the most from, and I can talk about whether I liked their books or not. Pretty much, once again, any excuse to make a time capsule like video. Personally, I love looking back at this content because I love making memories and I love kind of revisiting what authors I liked at a certain time and witnessing my reading tastes evolve eventually. Who knows? Maybe nothing will change after this, but we will find out together. But guess without further ado, let's get straight into the authors I read the most from in 2022. So it looks like I had 5 authors that I read 5 books from in total during 2022. First of all, I'd like to mention Alyssa K Adams. She is the author of the Bromance Book Club series, and I read all 5 books in the Bromance Book Club series in 2022. I did not expect Alyssa K Adams to actually make this list. In fact, I didn't actually put her on this list, but I just remembered that I had read 5 books from her in total. She would be on par with the rest of the 5 book authors that I've placed on this list. I love the series. I have no complaints about it whatsoever. It totally makes sense. She was one of the most read authors of last year for me. Another author with the same book series that I had read all 5 books in was Emma Ham, and the series that I had read from Emma Ham was the Of Goblin Kings series. This was a 5-book series. I very much enjoyed my journey through the series. I think I took around 2 days to read all 5 books. They're very short books. They're not novella length, but they're not typical novel length. Most of the time, they were somewhere between 250 to 300 pages, and I really enjoyed them. I loved the fairy tale-esque nature of the series. It wasn't one of my favorites like the Bromance Book Club series. However, it was definitely a very magical read that captivated me from start to finish. Another 5-book author that I had read 5 books from was Tracy Wolff, the author of the Crave series. So I had actually reread Crave, Crush, and Covet, and then I had read Court and Charm. This has become one of my favorite series of all time. I just really love the paranormal-esque nature of it because there's a boarding school with different paranormal creatures. It very much reminds me of Wednesday on Netflix. Wednesday on Netflix came out after I got into Crave, so that was a big reason why I really loved watching Wednesday's TV show. Even though, yes, it is technically a spin-off to the Addams Family, I appreciated it because I love the boarding school setting with the paranormal creatures. Honestly, I would recommend Crave if you kind of liked Wednesday. It's like Wednesday, except a little bit cheesier. There are a lot more pop culture references in the Crave series. I absolutely love Grace. I love Hudson. I initially got into the Crave series in 2021, but I revisited it in 2022 because I thought that 2022 was going to be the year that Cherish came out, which is book 6. Unfortunately, Cherish got pushed out to 2023, so that did not happen, but I am very much looking forward to rereading the Crave books in 2023 because I reckon that the reread experience is 100% worth it. It's definitely a comfort series, and while I did enjoy it the first time I read the series, I much more enjoyed it during my reread in 2022, and Court and Charm just happened to be 2 of the best books in the series. The next 5-book author I have to mention is Katie Roberts. I ended up reading books 2 to 6 of the Wicked Villains series, which ended up being a mixed bag. I pretty much enjoyed 4 out of the 5 books that I read. I loved books 2, 3, 4, and 6. I hate book 5 with a burning passion. That is very interesting. I was very happy to dive into Katie Roberts' books in 2022. I really did want to get to Dark Olympus. However, I very much wanted to finish the Wicked Villains series, and I think after the Wicked Villains series, I needed a bit of a break, so I hope to continue on with the Dark Olympus series. It's going to be a 10-book series. It's going to be out for a while. I think that's another reason why I put it off for quite some time. However, I'm also very much looking forward to the Deal with a Demon series. That series sounds sounds right up my alley. It was an absolute delight to read more of Katie Robert in 2022. Fingers crossed I will read more books from her in 2023 and I will enjoy them. And none of them will be like The Sea Witch. The last 5-book author I have to mention on this list today is Taylor Jenkins Reid. I actually expected to read almost all of Taylor Jenkins Reid's books in 2022. The only one I wasn't aiming to get to was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, because I have already read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I really enjoyed it the first time I read it, and I kind of remember majority of it for the most part. However, I do plan on rereading it eventually. My main goal in 2022 was to go through Taylor Jenkins Reid's backlist and then explore her front list. But in all honesty, this is an unpopular opinion. I enjoy her backlist even more. Like maybe In Another Life and One True Loves, and After I Do, those 3 books are amazing. So when I read Daisy Jones and the Six, I'm not gonna lie, I was actually really underwhelmed, and I wasn't actually motivated to read Malibu Rising because I heard from so many people that Malibu Rising is just okay, it's not amazing, and for some reason I'm also skeptical about Carrie Soto. I don't know, I really liked Taylor Jenkins Reid's backlist books. I did enjoy Daisy Jones and the Six, and I reckon that the audiobook is very much well done. I kind of hope that maybe one day Taylor Jenkins Reid will kind of go back to that contemporary, heartwarming, but also heartbreaking literature that she once wrote. I just really craved more of those books by Taylor Jenkins Reid, so that's why I did not continue on with the rest of her books. However, I am planning on reading more of Taylor Jenkins Reid's books sometime in the near future. Now let's move on to the 6-book authors. I have 2 6-book authors on this list. One of them has a completed series on here that is 6 books, and that, my friends, is Maria V Snyder. I ended up reading the entire Poison Study series. I did enjoy the series for the most part. I prefer the first 3 books. I mean, I understand why a lot of people appreciate the continuation. I do appreciate the continuation. However, there's one trope that takes the forefront of the series that I'm not a big fan of. I just wish that that trope dominated one book and one book only, not the entire trilogy. I don't know, it just really frustrated me personally. But I did enjoy the reading experience. I love the characters in the series. I love the world. I love the systems, all of that stuff, etc. I love about the series. I can totally see why it is a very hyped up series. A lot of people do classify it as young adult. I'd say that it's like upper YA / new adult. I'm really happy that I took time reading more books by Maria V Snyder this year, and I do want to read more, maybe outside of the series. I don't know whether I want to read more spin-offs in this world or whether or not I want to read some books that take place outside of this world, her other fantasy books or her other sci-fi books. We will find out. I will eventually explore Maria V Snyder's catalog, but I reckon that this was a great place to start. So the other 6-book author is Colleen Hoover. I read 6 books by Colleen Hoover, 3 of which I actually enjoyed and 3 of which I did not like. The ones I was not a big fan of, I mean, quite obvious at this point, Without Merit, that made my most disappointing reads of 2022. Verity, unpopular opinion, I found this to be mid. I understand that this is a good gateway into suspense or thriller for some people. And look, I don't necessarily read the genre much myself. I just found it to be very obvious. It was very compelling from the start. It's just, I reckon that it needed more. Ugly Love, I'm like on the fence about. I feel like Ugly Love had potential, but I think at the end of the day, it was the hype that got to me with Ugly Love. I called the plot twist probably at the very beginning of the book. I think with Ugly Love, what annoyed me the most was the relationship. Maybe it was because I put myself in Tate's shoes and I thought to myself, what would I do in Tate's situation? I would have just walked out from the get-go. Tate is very much different though. Tate is just a protagonist I could not relate to. November 9. I don't think I could relate to any of the characters in this book. However, November 9, being that it was my first Colleen Hoover novel, I did not know what to expect, but I actually enjoyed how terrible it was. It's written in a very compelling way, but when I mention that it's terrible, I mean that the love interest is an absolutely toxic person, and I would not condone any of his actions. However, November 9 was so darn entertaining. I actually enjoyed my reading experience of it. I keep on telling people that it's so bad that it's good, and it's actually one of those Colleen Hoover novels that I kind of recommend if you can obviously see that the love interest is toxic, but if you want an entertaining entertaining read. It's a good one. And then It Ends With Us / It Starts With Us. This duology I 100% endorse from Colleen Hoover. I actually really appreciate this duology. This duology made it to my favorites list of 2022. Something I did not expect. I did not go into 2022 planning to read Colleen Hoover at all. Maybe I did, actually. Maybe I thought to myself, maybe I'll give Colleen Hoover a try. But I did not go into 2022 expecting Colleen Hoover to have one of my favorite books / series of the year. This is more of a personal favorite because of how much it helped me with my healing journey. When it comes to her books, it's a mixed bag for me. I am planning to read more from Colleen Hoover in 2023. I don't know what to expect. I think after reading November 9, I had high expectations and then I was let down by Without Merit. So I really never know what I'm gonna get. Colleen Hoover's books are like a box of chocolates. And moving on to 7-book authors. I have 3 7-book authors, and the first of the 3 that I've got to mention is Carrie Maniscalco. I ended up rereading the first 2 Kingdom of the Wicked books this year. I continued on with the 3rd book, and I ended up reading the Stalking Jack the Ripper series. What I can say about Carrie Maniscalco, is she one of my favorite authors? I'd say based on Kingdom of the Wicked, yes, but I wouldn't say based on Stalking Jack the Ripper. I was actually a little bit disappointed in Stalking Jack the Ripper. I think I just expected it to be better than Kingdom of the Wicked. I don't know, I think because everyone was praising that book series when it first came out, I just expected it to be amazing and mind-blowing. But then when I also think about it, Stalking Jack the Ripper came out years ago, probably around the time I was reading YA more often, and now I read new adult more often, and the Kingdom of the Wicked series moved into being a new adult series. So that makes sense. But then again, Stalking Jack the Ripper wasn't necessarily not my thing because it was young adult. It was more because it was like a historical mystery, and at times I feel like we could have dealt with the story in 3rd person, not in 1st person perspective, because I don't know, I think the limited perspective of Audrey Rose just did not make for an as entertaining time as I anticipated it would be. And I feel like that's also where Kingdom of the Wicked falls short, because as much as I do like Kingdom of the Wicked, I would very much appreciate everyone else's perspective more than Amelia's. I love Amelia, I love being in her head, it's just I would appreciate being in all characters' perspectives, or just viewing things from another lens, you know? I enjoyed the books that I read from Carrie Maniscalco, but I essentially just went through 2 book series from them, and that's how they completed the 7-book count. And just like Carrie Maniscalco, there's another author that I read 7 books from that I also pretty much completed 2 series from, and that made the 7-book count. And that, my friends, is Laura Thalassa, who ended up being my favorite author of the year because they wrote my top 2 favorite book series of the year. Those are the Bargainer Trilogy and the 4 Horsemen series. I love these 2 series so much, and I love Laura Thalassa's writing style. I just find her books absolutely comforting. Every single time I open one of her books, they just feel like home. She's a very good urban fantasy writer. She tends to write more urban fantasy paranormal. I actually thought that both these series were going to be high fantasy series. I mean, yes, the Bargainer Trilogy does have high fantasy elements. It's more of a portal fantasy, that one, but I actually fully anticipated going into Laura Thalassa's books kind of envisioning a vibe that I would get from them. I ended up leaving with a completely different vibe, and I was 100% okay with that because the vibes were great. I honestly don't know what I'm saying right now. I'm very much incoherent when I'm talking about Laura Thalassa. I could just gush about her books, like, and just talk about how I feel about them, because she makes me feel a lot of things that I truly cannot comprehend. Also, I was debating whether or not I'd put her as a 10-book author instead of a 7-book author, because even though I had only read 7 books from her, I read the Bargainer Trilogy twice. I don't know, I'll leave that up to your guys' interpretation, but she's one of my most read authors at the end of the day, regardless. And the final out of the 3 7-book authors is Tessa Bailey. So I ended up reading 2 companion series from Tessa Bailey and 2 standalone novels from her as well. That includes the Hot and Hammered trilogy. I really loved that series. Also, the Bellinger Sisters duology. This initially is what got me into Tessa Bailey's works, and then I ended up reading Window Shopping, which was a short novel that was Christmas themed, and then finally I read My Killer Vacation by Tessa Bailey, one of my favorite books by Tessa Bailey. I loved all these books. I am very much looking forward to diving into more of her backlist next year, and I'm also very much looking forward to Secretly Yours, which is the first book in a new companion series from Tessa Bailey. I believe it's going to be a companion duology. It happened One Summer ended up being one of the first books I read in 2022, and honestly, that was a great way to start off the year strong because I loved It Happened One Summer and reading It Happened One Summer in summer of last year. Tessa Bailey is a comfort author for me, and I cannot wait to read more of her books in 2023, to probably explore more of her series. There are some books that are going back to print and some of them being picked up by publishers. Watch this space. I'm probably going to recommend more Tessa Bailey books sometime soon as I read them. And now we come to my top 3 most read authors of 2022. Coming in at 9 books read, we have Tesseract Odette. I ended up reading the Layla trilogy, I read the Fair Isle trilogy, and then I read 3 books in the Entangled with Fae series. I love all of her books. I've enjoyed everything I've read by Tesseract Odette so far, but I'd have to say most of my appreciation definitely goes to the Fair Isle trilogy, because the Fair Isle trilogy set the foundation for majority of the books that she puts out at the moment, like the Entangled with Fae series. I appreciate the Fair Isle trilogy. I constantly recommend it on my channel. I noticed that Tesseract Odette recently pitched it as being Bridgerton, but set in a Fae world. And you know what? I realized that she gave her series the perfect pitch. As much as it is a fantasy series, it kind of feels like a historical romance due to the politics and due to the scandal. I don't know. I really like the vibes of the series. I have so much appreciation for these books and for these characters, and I very much also appreciated the Layla trilogy when I first read it. I am planning on rereading it in its new form. It's no longer called the Layla trilogy. I think it's called The Prophecy of the Forgotten, but pretty much it's being rewritten. There are more scenes added into the series and scenes that have been taken away, but the characters essentially are the same. So I will have my biases going into the series, but I am looking forward to trying it out and continuously supporting Tesseract Odette in every one of her endeavors. I cannot wait to read more from her in the future. And my second most read author is actually an author duo. The author duo is Christina Lauren. In 2022, I ended up completing 10 books by Christina Lauren, and none of them were in series because they're all standalones. Majority of what they've put out are standalones. So I had read Something Wilder, In a Holidays, Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating, My Favorite Half Nightstand, The Honey Don't List, The Unhoneymooners, Twice in a Blue Moon, Dating You, Hating You, Roomies. Wait a second, could it have been 9 this whole time and I miscounted?
Interjection from the future book lovers. I thought that I got it wrong after I had filmed this video, but then I had to do some memory digging to realize that I actually also read autobiography this year. So yeah, it counts as 10 books.
I mean, maybe I might just find out that I was wrong later while I edit this video, but we will see if there's another book that I have read from them that is not on my shelf, but that's essentially what I could count from memory. But at least that definitely does confirm that they are still in my top 3 of the year. I don't know why. I just decided I wanted to read the entire backlist of Christina Lauren this year. I just found myself to be gravitated toward their books. I just wanted to find some comfort romances to read. I found some comfort reads through their books, and I very much appreciated my reading experience of them. I rave about some of them, and I feel 50-50 about some others. With Christina Lauren, it's essentially a hit or miss because their books are so completely different, and I guess that's what you get when you read standalones. You never really know what you're gonna get because they have different premises, they have different characters. I feel like Christina Lauren never write the same characters in their novels whatsoever. I can definitely distinguish everyone that they've written about. I personally would give anything to be in a writer's room with both Christina and Lauren to kind of witness their process in terms of crafting a book and putting one out there. I just find myself very fascinated in their standalones, and I'm very much looking forward to reading some of their longer form series in the future. And finally, my most read author of 2022 is Jennifer L Armentrout. Yes, I ended up rereading all the books that I read from her previously in the Blood and Ash and the Flesh and Fire series, those being From Blood and Ash, A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, and The Crown of Gilded Bones, and A Shadow in the Ember. So those were my rereads for the year. I ended up completing the Lux series, including the novella Shadows, and in terms of new Blood and Ash and Flesh and Fire content, I ended up reading The War of Two Queens and A Light in the Flame this year. That all amounts to 12 books, 6 books per universe. And what I have to say about Jennifer L Armentrout's works this year, A Light in the Flame made my favorites list. I was expecting the War of Two Queens and the Lux series to also make my favorites list of the year, but they did not. The Lux series at times was really fun, but I think that it went on for a very long time, and I reckon that if it was maybe one book shorter, I would have enjoyed it more. And I think if Damon was likable from the very beginning, maybe I would have enjoyed it. I know that he was meant to have a trilogy. First 3 books were meant to be written in his perspective. We ended up getting the first one. I never ended up reading it, but I definitely do want to, because I did not like Damon at the very beginning of the Lux series whatsoever. I didn't really like him that much until like halfway through the series. With the Blood and Ash series, however, it was a delight to read the first 3 books. The War of Two Queens, however, I feel like rereading those 3 books before the War of Two Queens was setting me up for the ultimate disappointment that I did not know that I was gonna get, because the first 3 books are amazing and the War of Two Queens just was not. I honestly feel like the War of Two Queens did not need to happen. Plot elements of it were important. It just was, in my personal opinion, a filler book for the name The War of Two Queens, because The War of Two Queens is an epic title. I got so excited when I first heard that the title was The War of Two Queens, but I think I just hyped myself up a bit too much. A Light in the Flame After a Shadow in the Ember, however, that was everything I could have ever wanted and so much more. Quite the mixed bag with Jennifer L Armentrout's books this year. I did enjoy them for the most part. I do find it interesting that I had read 12 of her books, because reading the Lux series and reading the Blood and Ash Flesh and Fire series feel like 2 separate series written by separate authors, but at the very same time you can definitely tell their similarities when you've kind of read them side by side in a way. So I guess that's gonna be it for this video today, book lovers. If you happen to stay till the end of the video, leave me the red heart emoji, and if you happen to enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet already. Join the amazing community of book lovers. And also I have social medias. I'm at gswizzlebooks on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm also Goodreads. That's www.goodreads.com/gswizzle. And finally, I'm at TikTok. I'm at gswizzle on TikTok if you want to follow me there for some bookish content. I love you, book lovers, and I will see you later. Peace.
Started out with half and I flipped it in a double. Started out with half and I flipped it in a double.